If you've wanted to take control of your budget and start making your money finally work for you, then you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to introduce you to an online budgeting software called You Need a Budget, or YNAB for short. Think of YNAB like a digital cash envelope system. Like in the olden days, you'd get your paper check, take it to the bank, get it cashed, and when you're ready to do the budget, you'd sit at the kitchen table with a stack of envelopes, stuffing each one with some cash and writing the name down for each category. Before we jump into the basics of budgeting and setup of your YNAB budget, I'd like to share with you why I believe YNAB is one of the greatest budgeting tools available and how it can help you succeed. YNAB is a powerful tool for modifying your spending behavior. It's one thing to plan out your spending, but it's a completely different world when you start letting the budget lead you in your spending decisions. Unlike other budgeting software programs, YNAB doesn't allow you to budget money that you don't have, which is essential to creating the right habits. I'll share more on this topic as we get into how to use YNAB. The goal of YNAB is all about using the oldest money in your account first. What this really does is a concept called aging your money. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, trying to make sure you have enough cash to pay the big expenses coming up, like your mortgage or your car payment, or you're just trying to get ahead and feel like you have some space in your budget, YNAB is the perfect tool to help you do this. A common goal for YNAB users is to get a month ahead, which basically means the cash in your accounts have been in there at least a month or longer. And the bills you're paying for this month, you've actually earned that cash in the last month. There's definitely a lot more things to love about using YNAB. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so we're logged into YNAB online, and the very first thing you'll see is we're going to have to add an account to get started. Over here on the left, it says no accounts. You can't budget without adding accounts to YNAB first. So we're going to click add account. Now, since we're not going to be linking any accounts here, we're just going to use unlinked accounts. But for you, if you're setting up your own, I'd recommend linking the accounts. That way that as you have transactions and daily activity, everything's going to be automatically imported. And personally, that's what I use, and I think it's definitely the way to go. So for this first account, let's just call it a checking account. What type of an account are you adding? Let's say checking. What is the current account balance? Let's say it's $2,000. Okay, since it's an unlinked account, any transactions we're going to have to input ourselves. If you're enjoying the video so far, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the bell for notification, and leave me a comment below on any other YNAB topics or any other budgeting software you'd like me to review. Now let's add another account. Let's do another unlinked account. Let's call this one our credit card. And what type of an account? Let's say credit card, and the balance is, let's say, $1,000. Now it automatically assumes it's a negative balance, which is right. It's going to ask you these questions before it'll start using the account. It says, with the balance you owe, do you want to create a target to pay off your balance? Or do you want to cover the whole balance? Or do you want to skip this for now? What that's really getting at is if it's a larger balance, maybe you don't have the cash in your account to pay it off right now. You'd want to set a target to pay it off or skip it. If you are a person who pays off your credit card every month, you can go ahead and just click cover my entire balance. We're just going to click skip this for now. So now we've added a checking account and our credit card, and we've put both of the current balances in there. So on the left-hand side, you can see your budget includes your checking account and your credit card. So this is going to include all of your accounts. I don't really think there's a limit. I personally have about 10 different accounts in here, and I don't have any trouble using that many. Now, as you can see here in the main screen, these are all the different category groups. You can use YNAB's pre-filled groups, or you can go in and create your own. Either way you go about it is probably fine. I think their groups that they come up with are not bad, but for my own budget, I went ahead and just scrapped theirs and I came up with my own. Because I want to show you how easy it is to set up new groups, let's go ahead and just delete some of the groups that are in here already. I'm just going to go in and delete these big groups. Now notice the credit card payments I can't delete, and that's because it's pulling in from your accounts. To add a group, we're just going to click this plus category group, and let's call it housing. Now, you can move around the order of these groups, which is nice. I like to keep the credit card payments up top because that's really kind of like, I think it's like a liability. And then I like to keep my expenses or my what I think of like my normal budget categories below. So for housing, we can set up new categories within housing. We can set up mortgage, we can set up utilities, we could set up maintenance and repairs. You can really do any kind of subcategories that works for you. YNAB is so flexible in allowing you to create new group categories and subcategories. I really find it very flexible. Okay, so now that we've got our housing set up, let's talk about what options we have within a category group. Under housing, we have our mortgage. Let's say our mortgage, we know it's going to cost $1,500 a month. Let's go ahead and create a target payment for that. And really, what YNAB calls the targets is really like your plan spending. And you can set up the target spending before you actually have the cash in your account. So this will let you know if your target spending is under your income, which would be preferred, obviously. If you target more spending than what you have coming in, you're going to have a big problem with budgeting in YNAB. So we can create a mortgage target. Let's say it's going to be for $1,500. It's monthly. YNAB has all these different selections to pick for target spending. As you can see, it's got needed for spending, savings balance, monthly savings builder, monthly debt payment. Now, if you're not going to be tracking the debt liability in YNAB, you don't really need to use the monthly debt payment. I typically most often use needed for spending or monthly savings builder. And what's really nice about having these two different options is the needed for spending, what it says, it's fund up to an amount with the ability to spend from it along the way. Or monthly savings builder, contribute this amount every month, no matter what, until you disable this target. We could say, honestly, either one is fine. Let's just go ahead and stick with needed for spending right now. And as we get into more categories, we'll see if we can use some of these other options. Due date, you could put the 15th or the 1st or whatever, just select the date you want to have this money. Now, see here, you can see it added $1,500 needed by the 1st. Let's go ahead and set up one more target, and then we'll get into a little bit more about how the cash works within YNAB. Let's say utilities is $200 a month. So we're going to click utilities, create utilities target, $200 per month. And let's say it's due on the 20th. So you remember when we imported our unlinked checking account, we put in that it had a balance of $2,000? You see this green box up here, this $2,000 is ready to assign. There's a key concept in YNAB that has the assignment of your available cash. And really think about assigning cash as you get your paycheck, you cash it, you put it all on the kitchen table. You have your whole paycheck, $2,000 on the table. You're going to have a mortgage envelope and a utilities envelope are the only two we've discussed so far. Let's say you take $1,500 out of your paycheck and you put it in your mortgage envelope and say, on the 1st, I'm going to pay my mortgage with this $1,500. Now, I get it's not very practical because most of our mortgage payments are auto drafted from our account, but it works kind of the same way as the totality of the cash in your account gets divided amongst your budgeted categories. You cannot assign the same physical cash to two different categories. It's just not possible. What happens when we click this assign button and then we put in the amount of the payment, what it does is it reduces our ready to assign. It shows that we have $1,500 available to pay our mortgage with. The activity section, that is, think of it like the transaction. So if you're going to set up YNAB and you're going to link the accounts, all of your transactions are going to come through activity automatically, and you'll just have to simply approve them, which is very easy. And I'll show you that as well. Okay, so if we click the checking account on the left-hand side, this kind of takes us to our checking account, and you can see the starting balance is $2,000. If you have an unlinked account, you would need to add transactions manually. If you have a linked account, you'll have a button here that says import. And all you have to do when you're wanting to import transactions, as often as you want to do that, I always recommend setting up a daily routine where I go on YNAB, import my transactions daily, I review them, and I also approve them. By doing it daily, it's so much easier and you don't get overwhelmed with 50 transactions to sort through. What I found personally is doing it daily, at the most, I'll have 2, 3, 4 transactions. It's very manageable to keep up with. Okay, so for this purpose, let's click add a transaction and we'll click it happened on the 1st. The transaction occurred on the 1st, and for the category, let's put in our mortgage. And for memo, we can put in mortgage payment. And remember, guys, all this is really filled in for you when you do the import transactions. And then outflow 1,500. You don't have to put in a negative sign because an outflow is a negative. Okay, then you see there it reduced your balance by 1,500 and you have 500 working balance. So if we go back to budget, you can see here the activity now has $1,500 and your available to spend in mortgage is 0, which makes sense. You've fully spent your mortgage payment. See, guys, it's very easy, and honestly, doing it with manually linked transactions and accounts is a lot harder. If you use it with linked accounts, it's so easy and pretty simple. All right, guys, for the purpose of this budget, let's go ahead and set up a few more categories. So we have category group, let's call it food. Can move it down here, and let's add some subcategories. Let's call groceries and eating out. All right, so then you've set up a couple of food budgets, and you can just come in here and set up your targets. Say for eating out, you want to spend, I don't know, $100. What's really cool about this is you can set up more than just monthly targets. You can do weekly, yearly, custom, which is really nice if you have like an annual insurance premium you want to save up to pay for. Custom is very handy for using that. These kind of sinking funds where you just want to kind of save and spend as you go, I like to put in there that I'm going to need it by the 1st, but it really doesn't matter. So let's hit save that target. And then for groceries, we can do, let's say, well, we'll do 500 per month on the 1st. All right, now let's add some transactions. So we go to we'll go back to the checking account and add a transaction. We'll say Wendy's. Category, let's go eating out. You don't have to put in a memo, and then you can add outflow, let's say $10. Click save. So if we go back to our budget, here's what can happen. So if you don't assign dollars to your categories, even though you have targets set up, YNAB can think you're overspending. So what you have to do is when you have cash ready to assign, you need to allocate that cash down to 0 amongst your categories. So let's continue to do that. Let's go ahead and fully fund our eating out budget, and let's partially fund our groceries. Now, all money assigned. So that's a great thing to happen. So far, we've stuffed 3 envelopes. We have our mortgage, our eating out, and our groceries. Now, we don't have other envelope stuff like our car payment, our insurance, our entertainment, clothing, all those things. It's easy to add your custom categories. The process of setting the targets is the same. You just go in there and set the target. Or let's say we take this out. You can click this assign button in the arrow and click auto underfunded, and then it basically funds that next category and auto underfunded. Boom. Now here's what happens if we funded all of it. We didn't have enough cash. What you can do is if you over assign money into one category, you don't actually have that cash, you have to unassign money from another category. So I can do that. I could say, all right, well, let's take that money back out of eating out. All right, well, that wasn't enough. We still have a $10 negative. So we could take all of our eating out money. Well, actually, I already spent some of it, so that wouldn't work either. So let's go ahead and fix this another way. Let's go back to our checking account. We'll add a transaction. We'll say today, for this, we're going to say it's an inflow. Let's say $3,000. Now it's saying this category needs a budget. So we need to basically, any income or paychecks that you receive, it'll come into the inflow ready to assign. We'll go back and click save. And you see what it did there? It added that to our working balance. So if we go back to budget, we now have more money to assign. And it'll be that simple. When you get paid, YNAB will know it because the transactions will import automatically. And then you can go in and just tell it to add it to your ready to assign, click save, and then you can divvy up your paycheck into your various budgeted categories. All right, so let's add a few more groups. Let's add a few more. Let's do entertainment. Move that down. We can say family fun. Let's do a new one. Let's do savings. So for our savings category, we can add in short term and we can add in investments. This would be maybe like something that you're transferring to a brokerage account or, just longer term savings. All right. So once you have a few more categories set up, you can go ahead and add the targets in. Say we have a target family fund budget of $200 per month. Any day is really fine. Short-term savings, let's say you want to save $100 per month. Now, for something like this, if you are basically going to be adding money to something and not really pulling it out very often, you might consider using the monthly savings builder. So contribute this amount every month, no matter what, until you disable the target. Let's add $100 there. So investments, you could do $250 and save. If you click this blue button at the top, it'll select all of your categories. You can then click assign and underfunded, and then it's going to knock out all those underfunded targets, which is really nice. So you don't have to do them one by one. So you say we've taken this amount of cash and we've stuffed some more envelopes, but we still have 2,150 ready to assign. Let's do a new category group. Let's call it transportation. And within transportation, let's add a car payment, gas, and insurance. So then for our car payment, we can say the target is $350 per month. Gas is $150 per month and insurance is $100 per month. All right, guys. So, and again, targets, this is why you have to put in a little bit of critical analysis into your budget before you can really make it work for you. Is you need to know about what you want to spend each month on all these different categories. And the best way I know to actually do that is to look at your historical spending and just take an average. If you just plug in an average spending here, you can always tailor it later on when you know, hey, maybe that's a little bit too much for that category. Let's cut some back. Or maybe I need to add a little more to that category. You can add some more. But to get started, just use your averages. All right, so then we can come in here and, we've added 3 more. They're not funded yet. So let's go ahead and fund those. There's a lot more to cover, but we just can't do it in this video. Otherwise, it'd be a lot longer. But this will be enough to get you started and for setting up your budget categories, how to make your targets, and how to import account. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.